An adult insulting me, a teenager, to my face? Sick. Enjoy your wet clothes. Obligatory. Apology for formatting errors, I'm on mobile. Background info, I work as a host at a popular chain restaurant that was featured on an even more popular sitcom, and meme to death on apps like Vine. My job generally consists of greeting and seating guests, bussing tables, rolling silverware, etc. Due to COVID, our policies have changed a bit. Instead of cleaning tables with a rag and some soapy water, we now use paper towels and peroxide. If you use too much of the peroxide when cleaning a table, it takes forever to dry, so most of us tend to use 2 to 3 squirts of the stuff. On to the story. It was a Saturday afternoon at about 4:45ish, and we were already busy. Our busy doesn't usually look busy, but we're really understaffed, so the amount of tables we seat at one time is limited. I have one clean table right now. All the others need to be cleaned off, and I haven't gotten a break in customers to go do that. These 2 women walk in and ask for a booth. Fine, I have a half booth, half table, they can just sit on the same side, right? Apparently not. I take them to the table and they call me stupid to my face. They start storming off towards the doors, presumably to leave, passing by a few dirty booths on the way. They then stop in front of a very large booth meant to seat 6 people, also dirty. Of course this is the one they want, a booth that seats 6, piled high with dishes, on a Saturday evening, with several big tops coming in later. Cool. Not like I can say no. I clean the booth and absolutely load it up with cleaning spray. I'm talking upwards of 10 squirts. The table and the seats. It's practically dripping by the time I'm done. By some miracle, the 2 women don't say anything about it. They sit down. I watch their faces change from arrogant satisfaction to disgust and discomfort. They ask me for some paper towels, which I give them, and proceed to clean their own booth. They don't stay very long after that, they get kicked out for spiking their own drinks. Cut me off. Get soaked. Beautiful day for a bike ride here in Vancouver, so off I went down one of our many expensive but well-designed bike lines. Needless to say, bikes have the right of way on bike lanes, but it never stops careless pedestrians from stepping into it at a bad time. It's usually not a big deal, but it bothers me when I have to slam on the brakes, and then I get to hear some Karen screaming at me about how I almost killed her. Which is what happened an hour ago. I had to slam on the brakes and skid to a stop to avoid hitting her, and she instantly starts screaming at me to watch where I'm going, etc. Hey lady, you walked into traffic. Not me. She walked off down the pedestrian path and I resumed my ride a minute later. Headed in the same direction. And just as I was coming up to her, the bike and pedestrian paths are parallel and run right next to each other. I noticed a nice big puddle. Accumulation of rainwater from recent days in the air between the 2 paths. I timed it perfectly to fly through that puddle just as she was walking next to it. I didn't stop, just slowed down enough to witness the soaking behind me and hear some of the yelling. Be a jerk? No training then. I work in a head office of a family-run essential business that has 10 satellite locations. Most of the managers at those locations are fine. The fellow who runs the storefront attached to the office is a real peach though, so will be referred to as such. He comes into my office all the time to complain about every little thing from his staff not working to how we aren't processing his requests for inventory fast enough. Our DM hates his guts because his staff have to be rotated out on a weekly basis, because they just don't want to work with him, as he constantly berates everyone and no mistake is ever his fault. It's gotten so bad, that other staff refuse to be rotated to the head office storefront. Peach also loves to come into my office strutting about like he owns the place and stealing things off of our desks when we're not looking or away. Nothing major, just pens and supplies, but it's annoying as hell. I do suspect him of stealing lunches, but I can't really prove it. He's also disorganized as hell, and makes our job harder. His invoices are a mess, and he doesn't properly account for his inventory or expenses. And we have to put up with it because he turns up the charm of the owners, a really nice couple, and is the top sales guy in the company, hence his posting here. So now to my petty revenge. It is an ongoing situation. Our software provider is going to roll out a new version of our invoicing software. Functionally, it is the same. But visually, it's like night and day, and a lot of the old menus have been slimmed down or moved around. It's my responsibility to do teleconferences with the staff at our locations and illustrate to them the differences and conduct training as best as I am able, given the circumstances. And we'll be rolling out the new version this coming Monday, as our provider will be ceasing support for all previous versions. I showed the cashier just fine. Peach refuses to learn. I told him that it would be to his benefit to learn now, as support was ceasing. He didn't care. I told him that the new version would be rolling out very soon and the DM needed everyone to be on the same page and using the new software. Also didn't care. And then he told me he would continue using the old version. He's the type that just does what he wants. In my final Zoom meeting with the owners and the software people today, I reported that the new version is good and that most of the staff were taking to it well. But if our provider were ceasing support for the old version, there would be no need to keep it installed at the storefront surely. Everyone agreed. So at week's end, the plug is going to be pulled on it at the store level. The upper management and owners support this fully for the sake of efficiency, and the software company thinks it's great to pull the band-aid off quickly, so to speak, and I guess this saves them resources too. Peach's cashier is aware and she is eagerly awaiting the crap fit on Monday. You want your clothes back? Okay, go find them. So this was back a few years ago, when I was in high school, and worked at a huge well-known clothing store. I was working cash register, and it's company policy to check IDs when customers use credit cards and spend over $60. This is relevant later. A woman comes up to the register and has this massive pile of clothes, no problem of course, and I start to scan her stuff and make small talk. After scanning all of her clothes, her bill racks up to around $400. At that point, I let her know the end sale price, and she hands over a credit card that clearly doesn't have her name on it. It was something like Michael, so I tell her that she'll have to provide ID as per the company policy. You can see then she gets agitated, and says she doesn't have an ID to provide because the card is under her husband's name. I say, oh okay. I'm sorry ma'am, I cannot accept this form of purchase. Would you happen to have another one? At that point, she starts to freak out. She asked me if her husband can provide proof over the phone, and I say no. That's when she decides to go nuts. She screams at me, and then shoves the massive amount of clothes over the counter, flips me off, and storms out of the store. My coworkers all came over and asked if I was okay, to which I said yes, but that I needed to have some jump on register for me. A few hours later, the lady comes back with her husband, demanding all of the clothes that she had earlier, as it was usual for us to just throw our go-backs into a basket near us and put it back at the end of the day. This is where my revenge comes in. See, when I jumped off of register earlier that day, it wasn't to compose myself, it was so that I could put back all of the clothes she threw over the counter at me, so that when she came back, they always do, she had to go look for it all over again. When she came back, she had to stand in line for a super long time, only for her to then greet me with a, "Where are my clothes at?" I went to pick up my husband since hiding is apparently so important here, while rolling her eyes. I reply with these sweet words, "Oh ma'am, unfortunately, all of the clothes that you picked out have been put back onto the racks. You'll have to spend some time looking for them again, unfortunately." She looked like she wanted to strangle me, but she walked away, because her husband came in and said, "No problem, thank you." Poor guy was probably so embarrassed. Seeing that woman's face when I told her it had all been put back, was euphoric to me, and seeing her take another 2 hours picking it all out again, was even better. Neighbor throws food from second-story window. A few years ago, I lived on the second floor of an apartment building that only had 4 units, 2 on the top floor, and 2 on the bottom floor. My next-door neighbor and I had both gotten puppies around the same time, and so we both started using the surrounding grassy area to take our dogs out. Every tenant had dogs, so everyone used the same grassy area. One day, I noticed a pile of cooked ramen noodles on the grass right next to the building, and hardly stopped my curious puppy from eating what we had found. A few days later, the ramen was still there, but now there was a single dead rose, and what looked like some bread as well. I looked up the side of the building, and noticed a fresh rose sitting in a window on the second floor. The window lines up directly with the growing pile, and because our apartments mirror each other, I know that window was my neighbor's kitchen widow. So now, I'm almost certain that the next door neighbor is just tossing food scraps out the kitchen window, as if we live in a giant composting bin. At this point, I'm annoyed, because I didn't want to have to rush to the vet because my puppy ate a chicken bone or something from the growing food pile, but also, who TF throws food out of the window like that? So I did the first thing that came to mind. I used the dog poop bags I had on me, to scoop up a handful of noodles and then drop the noodles, no bag, directly on my neighbor's doorstep. Never saw any more food out there.